Hello and welcome to my newest video where I'm going to show you how I made an Edwardian bustle pad which would have been worn in circa 1903. I got the rough pattern and shape of the bustle pad from a patent of the time. The first thing I made was making the straps, and for that I just used two long strips of the cotton fabric I used for the whole pad, folded it in half and sewed along the folded edge. For that I just used the width of my presser foot, which was about 6 millimeters or something like that, but that depends on your machine. Then I turned the tube right side out, and for that I used a long, very strong thread, threaded it through a very blunt needle and made a few stitches on the very top and threaded the needle and the thread through the tube. So I can then pull on the thread and turn the whole tube right side out. If you noticed before, when I sewed the tube, I made sort of a curve at the beginning, which helps me to get the first end of the tube more into the tube more easily. Then I had all my pieces ready to assembly, which were the two straps, which I finished off by hand just by folding it over and stitching it down, and the two pieces for the actual pad. As the first step of the assembly, I pinned the straps on the right side of one layer of the pad and kind of sandwiched it in between. And then I sew around the whole pad, the rounded edge on the bottom, and also sew in the straps with that seam. So the shape of the pad I got from a patent, as I said in the very beginning. And I did make another one, more or less exactly how it was shown in the patent, but it turned out way too big for me. So it didn't really seem right, and it didn't have the effect of making the waist look smaller, like it is supposed to be. Because the aim of these bustle pads were just to enhance your back a little bit and make the skirt sit properly, and also make the waist appear smaller. But it didn't really happen with my last pad because it was just way too big and it kind of had an awkward shape. So this is the second one I made, and it was much smaller and it worked much better as well. So then I sewed all around the curved edge of the pad, and I started 2 centimeters away from the straps so I can sew them in very nicely. After sewing, as always when you turn something right side out, I trimmed away all the excess seam allowance, and especially around the spot where the straps are sewn in, so they turn out very smoothly. And I also clipped all around the curve so it also turns around smoothly, and you can iron it flat before turning it around, which you will see in a minute. So the seam allowance got pressed down with a cushion. Because it's curved, you can't really iron that on a normal iron board. But my cushion wasn't ideal for that, because I made it myself and I didn't stuff it enough, so it's very flat. So the whole thing gets turned right out and pressed flat. And I also pressed the upper edge, so it's more easily to sew in place afterwards. So with the shape of the bustle pad ready, I could start cutting out the padding. And to imitate the look of extant bustle pads, which had sort of a quilted border all around, I traced the shape of the pad and measured 3 centimeters inwards all around. So I was left with this long curved strip of padding, which got then sandwiched in between the 2 layers of the bustle pad and pinned in place. This was a little bit fiddly because I had to make sure that the padding is more or less smooth and not bunched up or uneven in any places. So this did take a little bit of time, but well, like all the time, it works out. Then I could take the pad to the machine again and quilt all around the border with a straight stitch. I made 3 rows of stitching, and each one is like 3 to 4 centimeters away from the other stitching line or the edge. With the stitching ready, I could start on the grommets, and I used 3, 1 on the bottom and 2 high on the top, and tried to space them out as evenly as possible by folding the bed in half and making a dot with pencil, and then measuring up for the 2 other ones. And I installed the grommets as instructed on the package it came with, which was for me punching a hole with my pliers. I had rather big grommets, and the pliers punched very small holes. I had to widen them up with my scissors, and then I applied the grommets with the tools in the package. And now it was time for stuffing. I did cut up a lot of the padding in small little squares and started to stuff them in the pad all around the grommets. So first I made sure that the underside of the grommets, where I can't reach later on, are nicely stuffed, and then I put the stuffing in the rest of the pad. And I also did kinda tear apart the padding so it's a little bit more nice and manageable to put into the pad. Someone asked me if the grommets in the bustle pad are actually useful, and yes they are. Those pads are called ventilated bustle pads, which were invented around the 1900s, and with the help of the grommets the air could pass more easily through the pad, which made the pad more cool and comfortable to wear, because heat was building up under it because there were many layers that the women wore. So yes, the grommets are actually useful. As the last step, I closed up the top of the bustle pad. I did this with a simple slip stitch, so I made sure to just catch the seam allowance, so there is no stitching visible on the outside. And I also made some more stitches where the padding is, where I stuffed the bustle pad, in between the grommets, just because it was done on extant garments, and since I wanted to replicate them, I did it as well. And with that, the bustle pad is done. I really hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you also learned something. And if you want to see more of me, please subscribe and give me a like and a comment maybe. Thanks for watching.